Hello, everybody. Welcome to the West Ham Way YouTube channel. It's the fans' voice. Dennis, Ollie, and Charles are all here to discuss everything West Ham. There is so much to talk about. It's been a while. Back-to-back wins in the Premier League. We're 7th last time I checked, above Fat Frank, which is always a fantastic result. Transfer staff, the Robert Snodgrass thing that went on yesterday that we heard a little bit about, and of course previewing the FA Cup fixture on Saturday against Doncaster Rovers. I'm going to come to Dennis for our first little intro. Thoughts on the past two wins, mate? You know, these are teams typically that West Ham sort of falter against. And to be fair, we did falter a little bit in those games, but we managed to get through and get the 3 points. Well, the 6 points.
100%. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the game yesterday, when West Brom turn up and wear that yellow and green kit, they normally beat us. 2000, the year we got relegated under Roda, they beat us in that kit colour. They beat us a year after under Pardew, and they beat us in the FA Cup wearing that kit last season. But away from obscure superstitions about kits, again, yes, those are two games where normally we would have cracked under pressure against Burnley, 100%. And against West Brom, we wouldn't have had the drive for the second. I mean, I think it was a little bit fortuitous. I mean, people were praising Yarmolenko yesterday, but if you look at it, he heads it down. Antonio's quite lucky to get to that because the West Brom defence is just flat-footed. You know, if they had Craig Dawson playing for them, he probably would have edited it out. Ultimately, it's overshadowed a little bit by the board, and also just the board, doing some dodgy deal with Snodgrass. And 100%, if the Premier League hadn't been investigating, I guarantee you, Claret and Hugh would be having an article right now saying clever West Ham board strike deal to stop Snodgrass, but scoring against us, and thinking a big bravo, look how clever the board have been, and they potentially land us in hot water. It looks like we're going to get a fine, which we can live with. David Sullivan can pay that, but that will now be the excuse. It will somehow be a £30 million fine, won't it? And that will
but this is the thing, mate. This is the thing, isn't it? It's like that transfer window bingo, like where something has to happen every transfer window. We've had them joining the board of directors, his missus and obviously his son. Now we've got the Robert Snodgrass thing. I mean, Ollie, Charles, like when that come out, I mean, it's so David Sullivan. It's so West Ham for that. And to be fair, I think we could get away with it. But even just that kind of circus act behind the scenes is a bit disrupting.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I just think it's a bit of a non-story, to be honest. I think it's one of those things where they were just looking for a story. They heard that and thought, we could do something out of this. I mean, I suppose what it comes down to is whether or not this was something that was actually written into the contract, which does seem to be illegal, or whether or not it was just a gentleman's agreement, which I think you probably have seen this sort of thing happen a number of times before. We just haven't heard about it. From West Ham's standpoint, sort of from what I've heard, we don't really seem to have done that much wrong. We didn't want to sell him until after we didn't want to sanction the deal until after the game yesterday, apparently. But they wanted him as soon as possible. They wanted him for that Wolves game. So I think it was actually them that came up with the deal, is what I'd heard anyway. So for me personally, I think it's a bit of a non-story. And so long as we haven't actually put this down in writing, I think we should get away with it.
I was saying it yesterday, my mate. Leslie likes to comment and wind me up, was telling me that if it's not in writing, apparently things like this happen quite often in football. It's just not really spoken about. And Sam Allardyce had to sit there and say in his interview, possibly as one last swipe at the owners, because we know there's a bit of bad blood between him and the board following him leaving.
Do you know what? I got sucked in though. Big Sam's getting it. Yeah, but you know what? I got sucked in. Like I saw that and I was like, and then people were throwing up stuff saying this is illegal, and it's like, and it's just it's just that pessimism in me. Like it's going on. I'm like, not another thing. I agree. I think it is probably some gentleman's agreement. I'm sure Snodgrass, agreed with it. I'm sure it is above board, and I think actually we did all right with not Snodgrass in the side, because had he been in that West Brom side, possibly things would have been different in those last 10 with a few of those deliveries.
Yeah. I mean I heard that apparently West Brom wanted to get the deal done as soon as possible, and the owners wanted to wait till later in the month. I mean, these are just rumours at the moment, but the only way that they could get the deal through was if they agreed not to play him in the game that we were playing them in. I think I do agree with Ollie in the sense that I feel like it isn't as big a story as it needs to be. It would have been if the implications were a lot more severe and there were potentially points deductions at risk here. But I think it's just another thing to add to the Gold and Sullivan don't know what they're doing list, which is already pretty full and pretty pretty far-reaching in terms of what they've done. So I mean, again, I'm glad that I think today Sky Sports reported earlier that it's only going to be a minimal sort of punishment, whether it's a fine or a warning or whatever it is. So I'm not too concerned.
Our transfer budget.
Like Dennis says, it's going to end up turning from a £30,000 fine to a £30 million fine somehow. But yeah, I mean, it's I mean, like Ollie says, I mean, it's a very. It just seems like when West Ham when they do something good, something has to be in the way. Some little bump in the road has to be there. Something has to come up, and I think that was it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of yesterday's performance as well, I think that's the overriding feeling for me as a West Ham fan this morning. Just how well we've been playing recently and the results that we've been getting, and so that's definitely the big story for me.
Yeah, and I think let's go back to the Burnley game before we forget it, because even my memory's slightly sketchy. But I think actually in that first half against Burnley, I thought we were spot on. I thought the way we needed to play, win that ball in midfield, progress it, was exactly what we needed to do. And we've seen so many times against Burnley, here we go, we sit a bit deep, we can't break them down, and it was really, really good. We got the early goal. And then sort of second half, Burnley were just battering on the door. At any point, did you lads feel that maybe Burnley could get back into it? I know they were struggling a bit up front, and I spoke to obviously Joe from the Turfcast podcast, and they felt like they didn't have that firepower. I just wanted to know whether you thought they could get back in the game, and whether there were a few sketchy moments.
Yeah, when they brought on Rodriguez, if you remember, we all collectively were like, "Oh, here we go, a different type of forward." You know, he had that lucky goal against us last season. It was written in stars. You know, we were all prepared for Chris Wood, and Dawson was marking. You know, had a good old row. Marked Wood out of the game. Rodriguez coming on was going to be the different animal to try and mark, and that's when we started. I think Charles. I remember Charles, myself, and Angus being like, "Yeah, he could cause some damage." But again, it was just resolute. It's a game that we would have folded. We would have conceded some silly goal. We would have done self-destructed or given away a penalty or something. Historically, we've sort of etched that out of us and out of our system. And as long as we don't pick up injuries or suspensions along the way, as long as we can get this starting 11 out, or the variation of this starting 11 out between now and the rest of the season, could be a very, 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 very good season for us. So
yeah. I think we're seeing little things in games. Like, it's not to say that it doesn't go against us. We saw yesterday as well, like West Brom started to have a spell and you think, oh, here we go. But we're just a bit more resilient this season. There seems to be a bit more grit with this side, and we just get through those moments and kind of persevere. I think that's what's tough.
We win it in moments as well, rather than games where we would dominate and walk away with a draw, or dominate and get a scrappy win. It's level. We pick our spots and we pop up with a goal and win it by one goal.
Yeah.
You know, we win it with moments. It's almost like tournament football, like a World Cup. The team that wins the World Cup normally tends to not be the best team, but the team that picks their moments. So that's what it reminded me of at the minute.
Because going back to your question before, Corey, about whether or not I felt Burnley could get back into the game, there was a part of me that definitely felt like they could, because one, they're Burnley and they just always seem to get results against us. They seem to be a bit of a bogey side in recent years. People like Chris Wood seems to score against us every game. We're the only team he ever seems to score against. And then also because we're West Ham, and in recent years we've given away points from those sorts of positions so many times. I think I'm right in saying last year we lost the most points from winning positions, or we were certainly up there anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of that. So, but actually in terms of watching the game itself, they really didn't seem like much of a threat. And going back to what you guys were saying, we took our chances when they came. We had good spells, and I think Moyes deserves a lot of credit actually for his team selection in the past couple of games, because we saw sort of just before that Christmas period, there were a few games where his team selection was really, really defensive, really quite negative. We saw Noble get a couple of starts and was really ineffective. And I think Moyes looked at these two games in particular and thought, actually, both of these teams are going to sit back. We really do need to take the game to them. We can afford to have more attacking players on the pitch. And so I was really, really pleased with the team selection, and it paid off.
Charles, Thoughts on that Burnley game, mate? How do you look back at it now? Now we got the 3 points and we're nice and relieved, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone in the commentary last night was saying like, "Oh, West Ham have been, snatching it 1-0 recently, and it's been all 1-0 wins here and there." But I think, to be fair, I don't really care. I don't care what the result is at the end of the day, as long as we, grind out that 3 points. And I think, as West Ham fans, I think we get carried away with our potential ability. People say like, "Oh yeah, this team can really push for top 4 or even Europa places or whatever." But what I see is a team with good resilience. Someone that sort of like a Southampton in the sense that they're not like the best team in the league, but they're certainly they're a smart team. They're a team that puts in a lot of effort and works hard. And I think that was definitely shown in the Burnley game. Where we got that goal early, which we needed to. And then we defended really well for pretty much the entire game. We kind of had 1 or 2 blips in defence, and Rodriguez could have scored at the end. But overall, I felt pretty happy with how we defended. And like the boys have said, Burnley, a team that you come up against and you expect there to be some sort of black magic go against us. But yeah, I mean, we've done well. We've done well to get the win there, and it definitely gave us confidence to go into last night's match. Hoping to take away 3 points, which is what we did.
I think probably what we haven't. Well, we kind of mentioned it. Obviously, Dennis, you'll know, with the Allaire Antonio debate. But just in terms of Antonio, he has got those 2 goals. And listen, by all stretch of the imagination, he's not a fully fit Mikel Antonio. But you look at both of them, Burnley and West Brom, right place, right time, in the box. And that has told in these games. And listen, that's why we need to go and get another striker around him, because someone similar, we could be seeing these games a little bit more efficiently.
And again, it goes back to that whole moments thing. I mean, both those goals, it's a good moment. The bit of rub of the green, a bit of fortune, historically, we don't get. Take nothing away from Antonio before anyone goes, "Oh, he's only saying this because he's a Haller mark." I'm not taking nothing from Antonio. He took his goals very well, and he's obviously is the better forward. But that first goal against Burnley takes a nick off Tarkowski. And remember, we were laughing, if Tarkowski, was it Ben Mee? It took a nick off Ben Mee. Tarkowski's ready to head that back out with his motion, but Ben Mee touches it, and it just lands at Antonio's feet. Again, last night, Yarmolenko put some laboured header into the 6-yard box that West Brom players just ball watch, and Antonio reacts first for a little flick over, just sort of over his shoulder. Again, little moments we get it from. And again, to go what Charles said about thinking, as much as I'm saying it could be a positive season for me, a positive season is finishing 8th. As long as we're away from all the relegation drama and comfortable, I am more than happy with everything that's gone on now. Like a chat we've had on the mates group chat, partly trying to wind me up. They keep saying that how much I slagged Moyes off when he got reappointed, and look at what he's doing now. And I'm like, but at times Moyes is not without fault with his substitutions, with especially when it comes to the Brighton game, the lineups and things like that. But he has done a good job overall. But it's not all as hunky dory as people would like to think, looking from the outside in. For example, the decision to bring Yarmolenko on the out wide right against Burnley for Bowen when Antonio was knackered could have been very costly. And again, that's what a bit of luck. Historically, our players break down, and somehow Antonio's been bulletproof the last 2 games. I wouldn't start him against Doncaster, but we'll probably come on to that later. But admittedly, so Charles, I do agree with you as well. It's a positive season. We do need to keep our feet on the ground, and at the same time, acknowledge that some of this stuff is I'm not going to say lucky, as in we didn't deserve it, but we have had a bit of things go in our favour, and that's why we are where we are.
I think that's what I said about the Antonio thing, because although he's over yesterday, obviously he bodied Pereira, didn't he, at that time, which was quite a funny moment in itself. But no, honestly, like that. But when we talk about positioning, it's not to dig out Allaire. Even with the Bowen goal, he's in the right place at the right time in the box, and I think that's with Antonio. You get that. You get a central striker. You get a player playing on the shoulder. We do need that. And back to the Moyes thing. Mate, you were completely right to think like that, because we all thought like that. There were some really dodgy decisions early doors in Moyes' era, basically. Against Brighton, we were all pulling our hair out. We just couldn't understand why. But then last night, he puts Bowen on the left, Yarma on the right, makes sure Antonio's playing central, and then he gets the goal. And it's like, I am seeing little bits of improvement in game management from Moyes that make me feel a little bit more positive.
I mean, just quickly on your Antonio point, and I'll come to the Moyes in management point. Antonio, for the last 2 games, in my opinion, hasn't been that great in terms of what he can produce. But what he has done that Haller doesn't do on his bad days is produce some sort of assist or goal. I think, Haller, everyone's going to debate about, Haller could have done that or whatever, and the system didn't suit him. But when Haller had his bad days in that system, we knew that he was going to come up short and not come up with the goods. But Antonio, on the other hand, we know that he's going to boot one into row Z every game. We just know that's going to happen. But we also know that he's going to find the net and that he's going to body slam someone or whatever. So I think his input last night was great to see, even though I don't think he's 100% there yet, which is even better to find out. But and in terms of your in management point, I thought the substitutions he put on, well, I didn't quite agree with the Yarmolenko one. It came back to bite me on the arse. He ended up giving the assist, doing the assist and doing an okay job when he went on the field. And those substitutions came on at the 60-minute mark, something like that. So, for Moyes, that's pretty good for him to bring on the subs at that time. And Fornell's coming on and just putting in a good bit of hard work and grafting. So, overall, I think you're right. I think his in-game management is improving. And I think the team is improving alongside David Moyes' sort of knowledge of the team and how to kind of, tactically manage it.
So before Ollie comes in, I just want to say one very quick thing on Haller Antonio to summarize what Charles said. So basically, there's no question that Haller would have been able to pull off finishes like Antonio did, but ultimately Haller would not have got into those positions.
That's the difference.
Haller would not have had his back to goal to do that side of overhead flick. Don't really know what to class it as. And Haller would not have been standing off the last man against Burnley. 100% Haller would not have been in that position. Haller would have been much further back round by the penalty spot. So could he produce those finishes? Of course, he's a striker, but he's not going to be in those positions. That's the ultimate difference between him and Antonio.
Yeah.
Agree, mate. Ollie, thoughts on Moisey? Has he changed your opinion for this season, or are you still? There's still.
He's definitely changed my opinion from the start of the season. I mean, I did a massive rant on Twitter after that Everton game in the cup, going on about how much I wanted him out. Of course, I've changed my mind since then. The West Brom game yesterday, the irony was that for all the stick I've given him this season about not making substitutions early enough, I actually thought he made them a bit too early. And he proved me completely wrong. When it was only 60 minutes, I thought, come on, you've got to give side another 10. Like, if anyone's going to create something, it's him. And I thought he brought him off a bit early, but that ended up working. So sometimes you do just have to trust him. And on the Antonio thing, it's an interesting one. The thing I'm quite unsure on, and I'd be interested to know, is it just a case that Antonio isn't back to 100% fitness, and that's why we're not quite seeing him play? I mean, yes, he scored the 2 goals, but I agree with Charles. I don't think he's been anywhere near the same player we saw at the end of last year, start of this season. Or is it just that because the club now know how injury prone he is, because Moyes knows how crucial he is, that he's deliberately not asserting himself as much as he could do? Yeah, because
he has to pick his moments.
He has to pick his moments, and that goes back to what we're saying. And in that way, if that is the case, then that is good, because that does decrease his chances of injury, and it does mean that he could potentially play the 90 minutes of games, because he's not just running himself ragged the first half of the game. And as you said, he's picking his moments. That being said, obviously, and I'm sure we'll come on to this in a minute, we do need a backup striker. But I do think it's promising that if it is a case that Antonio is just picking and choosing his moments of when to run, when to assert himself, then there is a chance that maybe he could get through to the end of the season unscathed.
Oh, God, if only, man. It won't happen. No, to be fair, though, I remember, did he come on against Southampton or Everton? And I could see him.
Against both.
But he was actively, he wouldn't make that run. And you could tell that there has been that kind of decision behind the doors where let's just try and keep him fit. Now what we're seeing is 60 minutes fatigue. And I think Moyes finally did the right thing yesterday, taking off in the 80. We got the goal. We just had to sit back, made the right changes and gives him a rest. Like you say, Ollie, I've said this for so long now. We need at least 3 strikers. There's absolutely no excuse for a Premier League side, with the stature that we are, to go out and get them. And I want someone to come in that can fit the mould. I think this is a good opportunity in some respects. We get someone that can fit the mould of a striker that Moyes wants. There's no diminishing in terms of that quality in the way the team play. And it means we can afford to therefore go and rest him. I mean, Dennis, I'll come to you because this is your favourite topic, the board and transfers. I mean, what are we saying? We're seeing rumours coming left, right and centre. The Sullivan transfer bingo is kicking off. I mean, just your thoughts on it in general and how quickly do West Ham have to act?
How long you got?
Loads of time for you, man. Loads of time.
We're being linked with everyone under the sun. Like today, we're being linked with a obscure star, Darius Olaru, who plays in the Romanian leagues, who I've never heard of. And again, I'm a football manager, Anorak. We're being linked. We're chasing the Moroccan lad at Sevilla, whose name escapes me.
En-Nesyri.
En-Nesyri.
Even though his agent has said he doesn't want to come, even though he costs twice as much as Dia, who apparently wants to come, because they don't want to sign people. They want to go, we tried to show ambition, but it's a tough market. And it's just bollocks. I mean, Dia is available. Reims are looking to cash in on him, apparently. He's the joint top goal scorer in League One in however you pronounce it in France. It's a no-brainer. He fits the mould. Is he as good as Daka and other centre forwards we could get? Probably not. But he fits the way we play. He's a like-for-like replacement for Antonio near enough from what we've seen and what we've heard. Even if he's not as good as Antonio, he's someone that can come on for 20 minutes and not leave the team lopsided or not need to play Yarmolenko or Bowen up top, you know. Yeah. And at £15 million in this market is nothing, and he will go to someone better if we don't cash in. We don't try and get that. I mean, and even then, if we do get one of these more obscure players or cheaper players or a loan, like there was talk of Henry Onyekuro.
Onyekuro.
I can't remember his last name. I just remember his name was Henry, who we were linked with 4 years ago and couldn't get a work permit, but then Everton could. But then Everton couldn't, so we had to be loaned out to Anderlecht and I think Galatasaray for a couple of years, and now he's at Monaco. And I don't know how he's going to get a work permit now because he's barely played for Nigeria, but apparently we're looking at him according to the fountain of knowledge that is Claret and Hugh. And it's like, we'll get one of those in. But then in summer, we won't sign someone because the excuse will be, well, we signed Ben Rama. Oh, by the way, Craig Dawson's been signed permanently. There you are, 2 new signings, loan signings made permanent. It's like when, again, roll your eyes, it's like when the board, it wasn't Sullivan and Gold, but this is when we were owned by the bank, try to make out, well, here's your new summer signing, Radoslav Kovac. Been on loan for 6 months. We've bought him.
You loved him, mate.
No, I loved him. It's like he's not a new signing.
Yeah,
Ilunga was not a new signing either. Yeah. He just made it permanent. So they're going to say that Dawson, when inevitably we sign him, and Ben Rama, when we do something, we've got that obligation. When they're made permanent, they will say, "Here's your 2 new signings." Like they said, Soucek was a new signing. It's not a new signing. You've just paid to make that loan permanent. It's like after your 1 month Spotify free trial. There you are. You're paying for it now. It's not new. It's still exactly what you had before. It doesn't add anything different to your life, or in this case, the squad. It doesn't change anything. And this is why I just get fed up with the board. Oh, yeah, we're showing ambition. We're going for these players that don't want to fucking come here. And we do it every window. It's like Groundhog Day. I feel like Bill Murray. I'm going to throw the alarm clock in the bath next window because I've just had enough of this. And I'm here again.
It's the toaster.
Yeah, the toast.
I thought you said Diego Costa. I was like, I'm down that one.
I'm getting on Bill Murray's mixed up now. You know, all I want is the board just to turn around and go, you know what, David, you're right. You've only got 18 outfield players, and 5 of them are centre backs. We've got 13 players for the other 8 positions. We lose one of Rice and Soucek. We lose Antonio, and arguably we lose Ogbonna. And we're in a world of trouble.
Oh, mate, we are. If we lose Ross and Soucek, we are in some serious issues.
Connor has the leadership at the back. Dawson, as much as I can see him being vocal and maybe coming into having experience. I would rather him focus on his own game than.
Do you know what it is though? Like Dennis, you say about obviously Boulaye Dia that I thought was a done deal. He wants to come. He wants to leave. We've got the money. We've got the
done deal,
We've got whatever caveat it. But we've got that 20 million, right? Because Ajax had that money. It should be a no-brainer. It's his first choice target, and it's like we'll wait till the last couple of days of the window. Now I'm seeing En-Nesyri. They rejected £25 million bid. He don't want to come. All right, we'll give you 30. Now I'm thinking, where are you getting this money? Because if you've got that much money, you can go and get Dia, another centre midfielder, and a long-term left back. And honestly, it's such a smokescreen every window that it just really gets on my nerves.
And now we're linked with Diego Simeone's son, who's playing at Cagliari in Italy. And I've never seen him play. I don't know what I've seen him on Football Manager. He's a wonder kid on there, but that's because he's Diego Simeone's kid. So that's another player we're linked with, and that's probably going to be some form of weird loan. And I just anyway, let the other people talk. It can be more of the fucking same. But yeah, I've just had enough of this. I hate the transfer windows.
So do I.
I want to go to bed, David Gold. Please send me to bed.
Yeah.
Charles. Ollie, even if you're going to butt in on this one,
no, sorry, mate. It's just to echo what you two have said. Like, you're both right. You both hit the nail on the head. I think the most annoying aspect of it is just the conflicting messages with the whole thing. Like, we seem to miss out on so many of our targets because we don't have the money and we can't match the bids and we're not willing to pay this amount. Yet they throw in a £25 million bid for this Sevilla striker who doesn't want to come to us, as Dennis said, and also who I don't know why we're going in for someone like that. He's playing Champions League football, and if we signed him, he'd want to come in as first choice striker, play every game, and that's not what we're looking for. I mean, Moyes loves Antonio and sees him as the first choice striker. We want to bring someone in who fits the same mould, who can play that style, but probably wouldn't be first choice. That's why I think someone like Dia would have been a better option, because yes, he's done very well in France this season, but I think he obviously wanted to come to us, wanted to move to the Premier League, probably would have been willing to sort of start on the bench, try and prove himself. And that's the sort of player we should be going in for. I also think we should be looking at the Championship. There's that guy at Reading, I can't remember his name. Is it Zhao or something? Lucas Zhao, I think he's called.
Sure.
He's like the second top scorer in the Championship. I've watched him in a few games, but plays exactly like Antonio. Exactly the same style. Reading signed him a couple of years ago. He'd be available for half the price, but I just don't get it. So it's the conflicting messages for me. Like, how can you not have the money to bring in a few new names, but then have the money to bid 30 million on a Sevilla striker?
I know exactly why, mate. So there's a meme that I've created, and it's gone legs. I keep seeing all the time. It's David Brent when he says sometimes the complaints will be false. David Sullivan, sometimes the bids will be false. These bids are not happening. It's just reported in the media when they go to their friends in the media, like, Mirror, Dan, etc. Talks for. These are all hypothetical bids to try and unsettle the player. They've done this since the Birmingham days. They did it with Andy Johnson at Palace. Simon Jordan has an article out explaining it. They don't put bids in until it's already in the media and they've unsettled the player, trying to turn the player's head. But the player said he doesn't want to come, so...
I think the frustrating thing is that lack of sense. We look at clubs. I look at Leicester. They go and buy cheap. They've got players with huge resale value. That's how you go and generate and you plan for the long term. Now, if you get Dia in, he's 24 years old. I'm not saying he's raw probably in terms of coming to the Premier League, but he looks like the right fit to come and bring in as a rotation option. His value will only increase if he gets Premier League games under his belt. So even if it doesn't work out massively, even if he's not scoring 20 goals, Antonio isn't either, you've still got something to rely on. And that's the bit but you'd rather go and spend 25, 30 million euros on a Sevilla striker that might not adapt to the league, that's actually transitioned from a bit of a right winger to a centre forward. I just don't understand it. It's just mental. No sense in it whatsoever.
And all these bids have got weird, like, again, looking at this talk again, whether you believe it, that the Haller money, what we spent on Haller wasn't 40 odd million. It was like 20 million up front with all these silly things, like such as if he scores 20 goals in one season. He was never going to score 20 goals in one season. He did it once in his entire career. And that was in his last season at Frankfurt, He wasn't a player that scored 20 goals on a regular basis. He'd normally get 10 to 15, And that's possibly what we're trying to do with Dia. We're probably the reason why we're not going for Dia is instead of 15 million, we go, all right, here's 7, then 5 in other instalments, and then we'll give you 3 if he scores 30 goals this season or something shocking like that. It wouldn't surprise me again.
Charles, can I come to you about the Snodgrass thing, aside from the dodgy clause and all that in it? I mean, getting rid of Snodgrass, would you have looked actively to bring someone in? I know that apparently I've heard Moyes is happy with what he's got, but do you think that is also an area that West Ham, if they've got money kicking around?
Absolutely, and judging from the other two's reaction, I think they agree with me in the sense that, of course, we should have been looking for. Of course, no, not. I mean, the thing is, it's unfortunately it's not a stupid question because it's a very real problem that we face under these owners. I think the biggest condemnation of the ownership from last night's game was the fact that we brought off our only attacking output in Antonio and brought on Mark Noble, who doesn't have legs anymore. You know, I mean, the fact that that is still happening and still plausible in this lineup just shows you how far we still have got to go in terms of our squad depth. Our squad depth was piss poor at the start of the season, and I think a lot of us were putting us down as relegation rivals just based on the fact that we were so light in so many areas. But yeah, I mean, we've really got to solidify the the bench, in my opinion, especially in the centre of midfield. I mean, again, probably another Golden Sullivan spin deal, whatever it was. But I think Lundstrom came up in 2 months ago, whatever. And now what's happened?
Bring him in.
700,000 is way too much, even though we're bidding 15 to 20 mil for Dia. So, it's just ridiculous. And, you know, the good thing is, I think Moyes is starting to get more of a backbone, and he's starting to say, he's putting out people like Noble because he's like, I've got nothing else to do. I've got no one else to bring on. He's going to really make a difference. So, I think I'm hoping that we need at least one other signing for the striker. I mean, a striker would be great, but I still think we need either a centre midfielder or a backup left back. But centre midfield is probably my first option. I mean, it's frustrating, of course, it's just another kind of a bit of evidence that goes towards showing how the recruitment at this club is so poor, and hopefully Moyes will get the opportunity at the end of the season to completely restructure it, or at least have some more of a say. The one thing I do like about his interviews recently is that I agree with him when he says, I don't want to buy just any player. I don't want to bring in Wellington Paulista or Antonio Nocerino or Borriello just because squad depth or just because he's a player. We need to bring in people who are going to make a difference, and so hopefully him and his coaching staff will figure out the targets that they want, and depending on how stubborn the board are going to be, hopefully they'll be able to get one or two of them in.
Yeah, he said that in summer. He said the same thing in summer, mate. It's not a new thing.
Exactly. But also, I think also, like, on the En-Nesyri thing, I agree with I agree with whoever said that we shouldn't go for a player that doesn't want to come to us, because A, he doesn't want to come to us. B, Sevilla are going to drain us for way more than he's probably valued right now. And C, we've already got more options that we could look into, cheaper options, but also options that probably suit our style better, like Dia, who's a big, pacey forward, Ivan Toney, hopefully, people like that who we can try and, even Seema in the summer. I know that's obviously not a realistic target for this window, but, people like that who we have a genuine chance of, instead of these stupid, kind of fantasies that we're dreaming up of. And to be honest, I mean, it just probably shows how kind of, how sort of disconnected I am with La Liga, but I hadn't even heard of him until it came out in the news last week. So
yeah, no, listen. I am sort of grateful for small mercies with Moyes in the fact that we don't have these silly 33. I mean, remains to be seen. It could come in, so I won't speak too soon. But just because he doesn't feel like he's coming out and he's saying all the right things, I don't want someone in just to take a squad number. Again, he knows he's being positioned by the board, and I think he is trying to make that statement to them. Anyone that looks at that squad with the amount of centre backs we have on the bench and doesn't think we need additional bodies in there is crazy. And I think fair play to him in a way. We know he's got that £20 million, and I think that's the thing that we want him to spend and get the right player in. And if he can go and get a Dia in, and he's the right guy, brilliant. It'll be the first time we've seen Moyes with 2 genuine striking options that he can rotate. Because last time we had Arnie, he was our first choice. This time we had Antonio, he's our first choice. I want someone else that he's happy to bring in and start to rotate a little bit, and maybe we can even progress further than we are now.
Yeah,
Stunned you into silence.
Yeah, it's just look. We again away from the strikers. We were linked with Kral at Spartak Moscow because he's Czech. We were told, or we were advised that we're looking at Lundstrom. It could be as little as £700,000. I said at the time that that's bollocks because it was before the Liverpool. It was the one before the Liverpool game we had of the fans' voice. Because if he's that cheap, much better teams will be in for him and much more viable options. He won't be coming to us if he is going that cheap, and even then, we won't do it. I mean, we're pushing. Obviously, the board will say we got Odubeku as backup. And look at his scoring rate. Look at the youth players, but Moyes hasn't really been integrating them. I mean, I as I said before the game yesterday, I refuse to believe that there was not one player from our under-23 squad in a different position or in a midfield or attacking position that could not have come onto the bench in place of one of Alves, Diop or Balbuena, because you don't need 3 centre-backs on the bench when you're playing 2 at the back, especially if you or even if you're playing 3 at the back. You don't need that many centre-backs. That was just a case of making up the numbers. I thought the only other option was David Moyes. We were told that Odubeku wasn't available. So I think reading between the lines, X said that he's possibly tested positive, which would then rule him out for Doncaster, which is a bugger.
I've got to be honest. I mean, we were touching it. I cannot see Mikel Antonio starting against Don. I mean, for the life of me. Or if he starts, he'll be taken off at half time because no way he should go through the more than a half. There's no need. I don't understand it. Just we've only got no strikers, but maybe he'll do something like a Bowen in a 9 or maybe Yarma. I'm not sure, but I just wouldn't like to see him out there come the start of the game.
Yeah, I think if he's going to play Antonio against Stockport, he's going to play him against Doncaster. And Moyes again is that mentality of like, well, I'll pick an 11, they're good for the 90. But then we play Palace on Tuesday, and as much as I would love to prioritise the cup because we're realistically not going to win the bloody league, and I don't think we definitely won't get top 4, and I just don't think we'll keep it up to get Europa. I think a good solid 8th, 9th place finish would do me. So therefore, I would like a cup run. But ultimately, I don't then want to get walked over by fucking Crystal Palace and have to deal with their twats on Twitter for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you tell him, mate. You tell him.
Yeah. So I do want us to turn up against Palace, but I do want maybe have one mind to that. I won't want Antonio to play against Doncaster, but he will, and he'll probably pay the best part of 90, if not the whole 90, because David Moyes.
We've got a ridiculous. Is it like 6 fixtures in 2 weeks? I think we've got
crazy.
Literally Tuesday, Saturday, or Tuesday, Sundays, Tuesday again. It's like I think the next one we've got Liverpool next Sunday, possibly, and then Villa on that Tuesday, which is going to be nuts, guys. They're 2 high pressing teams, and we're going to have to seriously be in some shape to deal with them.
If we win the FA Cup game, the next round's midweek as well, which is crazy.
It's midweek.
So that's just another game
as well. Which
yeah. So I mean, I actually don't think Antonio is going to start at the weekend. I think one of the reasons we saw him start against Stockport was to try and build that fitness back up a bit because he hadn't had many minutes at all. And then I think there was a 5 or 6 day gap. I think we played on the Monday, didn't we? And then we had the game against Burnley on the Saturday. So not loads of time off, but probably enough to recover. But because there's only 3 days in between this game and then Palace again on Tuesday, I don't think we'll see him start. I've got a funny feeling, even though we haven't seen it that much, that Yarmolenko is going to start through the middle. I think he's been building up to doing it, and it makes sense in my head anyway. I think it'd be better up top than he would be on the wing, that's for sure.
I can properly see a Yarmo Fornals Noble type looking team.
I think it's going to be exactly that. So I hope he doesn't start anyway. But just one last thing on sort of the transfers.
Yeah, just ask Moody's question.
One last thing on the transfers. Going back to, I remember Moyes sort of before this season got underway, him sort of coming out and saying that he wanted to bring in a couple more names, sort of implying that he wasn't necessarily completely happy with this squad at the moment. Since that point, we've actually lost more players than we've brought in, and now we're suddenly happy with it. I was looking back at the starting 11 we played against Charlton in the Cup at the start of the year, and we had Wilshere playing, Snodgrass playing, Cullen playing, Anderson playing, and Allaire playing. None of them are there anymore. And like going back to the central midfield options, where I mean, you can see why Snodgrass left because he wants more minutes. You can see obviously why they got rid of Wilshere because he was on mental wages and injury prone. But sort of, I know it's sort of been a few months now, but going back to it, someone like Josh Cullen is the exact type of player who you would have wanted in this situation, who could have played in this Doncaster game and done a job. And we let him go for stupidly little money without any intention of replacing him whatsoever, just to free up a few more grand on the wage bill. And it's transfers like that which are so annoying because, as I said, the Wilshere one I get, the Snodgrass one I get, but the Cullen one, what? It's so frustrating.
It's asset stripping, mate. It's asset stripping. Simple as that. Honestly, he's doing well. Reading the Athletic and things like that. There's articles out there. He's smashing. Not smashing it, but he's playing really well for Anderlecht. We'll probably play Champions League football for them next year because I think they're running away with the league. I could be wrong. Or European football at least. And again, him or even Connor Coventry, who isn't featuring at all. I don't know if he's in.
Yeah, Coventry's the one, isn't it?
Yeah, Coventry's another one that's on the books that could come in and do something maybe, but he's not. And it's just, that was that transfer and the Diangana ones, the ones I was like, it completely boggles the mind. I mean, I could get flogging Anderson. The problem was we put Anderson out in the shop window and Claret and you did enough articles slagging him off that meant that his value depreciated via the reputation, But Cullen, for the sake of, I think it was 900 grand, I think X said he went for. And he can't have been on much wages, 10 grand top.
That's the bit. He won't even probably be on
that. That is nothing. Admittedly, not all of his money is hard cash and it's in property, but David Sullivan is a goddamn billionaire. He doesn't need to save that much money. He could possibly reimburse that into the club himself. Surely, you'd think. If it was something like 20 million for Hallow, even though we won't see it, that goes back into club. Fine, 20 million. But for the inexpense of all the nothing money we got for Josh Cullen, it suddenly could potentially cost us points or a cup run because we're not able to rest players or bring on another midfielder. Again. Souček or Rice go down, or if Noble picks up a long-term injury, and then we have no one to come in for Souček or Rice if they pick up too many yellows or they need to come off the last 20 or something like that. Again, central midfield is so key, as we've seen over the years. We lose that, we lose games.
Yeah, I agree. And the problem is it puts so much pressure on that midfield because even against Doncaster, it actually means that if you want to rest one, you can only really rest one of the players. Like one of them has to play, probably Declan, to be fair. And it's like, to be fair to them, their fitness levels, Declan Rice and Sue, are unreal. The whole squad, in fairness. I mean, the fact they're churning out 90 minutes almost week in, week out. But you just need to give them a serious break. And listen, I think the problem is, particularly with these owners, is the argument now is the striker. When they get in the striker, it'll be the centre midfielder and it'll just go on and on and on. And it'll be like, just get it done. And like you say, the Cullen thing, he was on absolutely nothing. To throw him out, and I believe he had good enough quality as a fourth choice at the time. So I don't understand why. And if you're playing for West Ham, gets his value up, you could possibly sell him for more than that. So, yeah, just getting the ump about it, man, to be honest, even thinking about that Doncaster game. But I think we'll just see a much changed side. I think we'll have almost like a false striker in there. Fornals didn't start as well. Probably might even start a Lanzini or something like that, just to kind of see him over and tide him over. But it's not about giving people minutes, it's about giving people rest. And fingers crossed we do that.
Yeah, well, I think Russ said in the comments, when are we going to start taking the cup seriously? I think this year is probably a very big year to do that because obviously we haven't got any replacements to give all those main players a rest. So we're probably going to be putting out pretty much full strength teams in these FA Cup games. I think the team for Doncaster will be similar to that, if not identical to the one against Stockport, at least to start with anyway. And I think if we're going to go for the cup, this year would be the year to do it because we're seeing teams like Liverpool have loads of injury concerns and they're actually probably not playing amazingly well recently. We might have them in the next round of the cup. I think this year definitely could be a good year to go for it. But obviously the counter to that is obviously are we realistically going to get through this next month or so injury free, and I think West Ham fans will will definitely think that won't be the case, especially in regards to someone like Antonio. So I hope that we do kind of alternate a lot, especially in the Doncaster game. But yeah, I mean, like you say, Corey, there's a lot of load being put on players such as Rice and Souček, and I think, to be fair, they're fit enough to take that load. But for someone like Antonio, who's very much injury prone, someone like Cresswell, who's been injury prone in the past, and who isn't like the youngest out of them all, so we've really got to be looking after these players, and especially if the board aren't going to back Moyes up with any backup signings or anything like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. But I think there definitely needs to be some sort of kind of alterations to the team over the next few weeks.
I think that's the shame, innit? Like, we're doing well in the league. We're not going to get relegated. I mean, touchwood, I don't think we will. I think we've done all right this season. But like, normally, with a normal squad, like, we would be able. And I watched Leicester the other week in the FA Cup. They put out a second string side, very good quality. I'm thinking, imagine having that type of quality. And I think that puts Moyes in an impossible position where he clearly wants to go for the cup. The cup means it's an opportunity here. I know we've either got Liverpool or United next round, which is almost a thankless task in itself. But we could go for it. And I guess we go into these FA Cup fixtures, I'm thinking no injuries or weakened squad. And it's such a shame that we have to think like that, because really we're having such a good season. We should be in the ascendancy and really just going into these games thinking we can win them.
Yeah, I think the Doncaster game, or these sorts of games, are always really tough for a manager, especially when you've got a Premier League game just a few days after, because unless you do end up winning both games, which will obviously be the intention, but if you play your first strength team against Doncaster, beat them, but then the players are really fatigued and we end up losing to Palace, then it'll get criticised. But then if you rest them all and we end up losing to Doncaster, then equally he gets criticised. So it's a really tough situation. And in years gone by, I would always say in this situation, let's go for the cup. Let's go for the cup. Let's play our full strength team, especially because in recent years we haven't really been doing that well in the league. Sort of, we haven't been challenging really for the European spots at all. We've just about been avoiding relegation. We're sort of in that zone, sort of top of the bottom half of the table, where the season's not really going to amount to much, and everyone's really, really desperate for a long run in the cup. This season is almost different though, because this is the best chance we've had for so many years of doing well in the Premier League. The way this season's gone, it's hard to imagine that there's ever going to be a season like this, or another season like this, for a while. I mean, we're 5 points or 6 points now, I think, off the top of the league. That is crazy. Halfway through the season, who would ever have thought that? And on the flip side of it as well, if we had a really easy cup run, you might think, oh yeah, no, of course we've got to go for it. But if we beat Doncaster, we've got United or Liverpool. Well, and we're not going to be favourites going into that game. So whilst I'd love to do well in the FA Cup, of course I would. I've never seen West Ham win a trophy in my lifetime. But with the size of our squad, given the size of our squad and how we need to bring in more people, and given the fact that even if we beat Doncaster, we've then got United or Liverpool coming up, I'm really sceptical about playing a full-strength team, someone getting injured, and then we get knocked out next round anyway, and then some of our best players are injured, and our Premier League run comes to an end as well. And so it's a really, really tough situation.
One of the teams that I watched Leicester in their FA Cup game last week. I'm just so jealous of them because they have squad depth coming out of their arse. They're literally just you look on the bench and there's a player that in nearly every position that can come on and make a difference. If we had any sense of kind of sort of passion or drive from our owners, we should be aiming for that, where we're putting out a team that's not necessarily a full strength squad, but a team with certainly a few youngsters in there and some sort of backup players who haven't got a chance in the league. Put them out, give them a chance to shine, which is exactly what Leicester did against Stoke. And Leicester are still up there in the league as well. So I think Leicester is just a case of what could have been for a lot of West Ham fans in terms of what they've succeeded and what they've done over the last few years. A really good, well organised team, and West Ham should be aiming for that, but under these owners, we never will achieve anything like that.
Yeah, they've got about 10 right backs at Leicester, and they just keep doing it. Don't forget about their training ground and stuff. But that's what I mean. Yes, they won the Premier League. Of course, it was a massive boost for them. But I think the way that they've built on that, and that was what we should have done when we left the bowling ground. That should have been and just unfortunately our owners are so bad that. And also, what I am worried about, and you've seen, there's an article that obviously Dennis will know quite familiar with the Europe. If West Ham get into Europe, that would be a bad thing. I would love West Ham to get. I would absolutely love it, and every West Ham fan would. But you do look at it and think, I tell you what, they're not going to. If we get Europe, they're not going to back him. And if he's literally on this squad in Europe, I'm going to be like, how could you do this? But that will inevitably happen. But
how much is the travel going to cost David Sullivan going to
Europe?
He's
going to be. I was saying, I bet he was moaning about Stockport.
Honestly, it's like that bit in Tiger King where he goes, "I'm never going to financially recover from this." That is David Sullivan when we beat Doncaster at the weekend. We have to go to Liverpool or Manchester. I'm never going to financially recover from this. Mate. That is the next meme I'm making. David Sullivan as Joe Exotic. I'm never going to financially recover from this.
It's true though, man. Honestly, that really was.
It's absolutely. It is tragic. It's mind-numbingly tragic, but that is the reality we live with. Again, mates of mine that don't support West Ham, they don't get it until I say put it in front of them. I go, well, imagine your owner doing this, and it's like, oh yeah, and it's like, especially like with my mates that are like from uni and stuff that are like United fans or like, woe is me. It's like you're fucking challenging for the title, and but it's the end of the world because they didn't sign Jadon Sancho. Sorry, while I don't give a shit. Like we've got our owner that goes on national fucking radio and says, "Oh, I'm delighted we qualified and beat Hull, but now we have to spend 50 grand to go to Everton." And it wouldn't be surprised if he was secretly fucking delighted we did get trounced. So we go, "Oh, we'll wait 50 grand. We might as well have lost to Hull." Dickhead.
Yeah. No, it's all right, man. It's all right. I kind of like tie it in with that, the idea of Europe. I mean, I'll put it out there tentatively. Let me know in the comments as well what you think. Where do you think? Now it's the midpoint. I think we have played 19 games or 18. Where do you think West Ham can finish?
I'll answer that question at the end of the window, mate. I'm not.
The thing is,
it was something.
End of the window, mate. You can't. End of the window, mate. It depends if we bring in a striker that isn't a Sullivan special. Could be different. If we don't, and we have the squad that we got now, I'm just predicting we'll pick up an injury and we'll finish like 12th or something. We'll drop down the league a little bit. It is quite tight. Arsenal are always going to probably end up catching us. To be fair,
better than Arsenal, man. Come on.
No, I'm saying if we pick up an injuries like Souček or Rice or something. We'll drop down the league a bit, and teams like Arsenal and will catch us up, and they'll go into the top half while we just slip in. If we're lucky and don't pick up the injuries, can see absolutely no reason why we can't finish 7th or in and around there. And if we get the right investments in January, we could push on even higher. But again, it's all if buts and maybes till I know what squad we're going to be playing with, mate. So
I did dig you out, but it is a good point. It is a massissive point. Like we do need some reinforcement.
Answer that question without the window being closed, mate. If I'm honest.
In light of that, Ollie, where do you think we can finish, even though the window isn't closed?
Well, it's weird because the more and more this season goes on, the more I see it sort of mirroring that 15-16 season where we did so well, just in terms of everything, in terms of sort of some of the better teams underperforming and some underdogs really starting to make a name. I mean, Leicester, of course, I mean, they're at the top again, like they were in 15-16. And we saw with that season as well, we sort of grinded out results, and I still to this day think we were robbed of Champions League football that season. We were so unlucky. We were so unlucky not to get it. There was about 5 or 6 games in a row where I think if VAR had been in place, then we would have won those games or picked up results. I think it was like Arsenal, Chelsea, that Leicester game as well, where they got like the 96th minute penalty, which just wasn't a penalty. And thinking back to that season, we, other than Payet and Lanzini, we had a pretty terrible squad, as emphasised by the season after, and Payet left when we almost got relegated. And if you think I mean, if we could almost get Champions League football in a season like that, you look at the squad we've got now, and like Dennis said, obviously this is going to depend so much on whether or not we get injuries, whether or not we bring in reinforcements in the next 12 days. But I honestly think that the sky's the limit. Maybe not winning the league, but I honestly think that after 19 games, we're 6 points off the top of the league. Anything can happen. We haven't been overrun by any team this year. I think Chelsea is our biggest defeat, and that 3-0 flattered them so much. I mean, that was not a 3-0 result. Other than that, we played shocking against Newcastle, but none of the big teams have smashed us. We dominated United for 60 minutes. We were 1-0 up against Liverpool and City. We got 3-3 against Tottenham. We battered Leicester. We battered Wolves. We beat Everton. We drew against Southampton. No team has battered us this season, and we've played every team in the league now. And as I said, no team's overrun us. So why can't we do even better second half of the season?
And all our bad results, in my opinion, have come from us playing bad. Whereas sometimes last season, like, not being funny, but opening game of the season against City, where we lost 5-0 under Pellegrini. I'll be honest, we didn't actually play. We didn't play.
They were that good.
We tried. It was still some form of a contest until 3-0. Whereas against Newcastle, we were just not at the races. Chelsea, we were just not at the races. Chelsea took their chances. Brighton, we set up appallingly. So our own bad performances have come from our own doing. Not
have you noticed a recurring
outclassed? The
a
only
recurring
time
theme
I
with
think we
these,
were overwhelmed was second half against Liverpool towards the end.
Yeah. I mean, a recurring theme with the games that you've just mentioned is that they're the only games Martin Noble started this season.
Oh, do you know what, mate? That's such a good point. Like, I hate to dig him out. I do, but honestly, our whole team, the way, and I sometimes think about that period when Antonio got injured and Nobes come in, and you think if Antonio was fit and Nobes was in that side, I think those games would. I mean, the Chelsea game would have been much closer. It absolutely flattered them, and it was a game that I thought before Noble come in. Then he come in, I was like, nah, I don't know if this is gonna work. And I feel bad. Listen, he's done a service. Of course he has. He's a West Ham legend. But in this side, and look how functional West Ham are. We can't carry him. We can't. I don't even know where you'd put him. The only way you could put him is defensive midfielder. And you look at the emphasis on Rice and Souček to be athletic. Noble can't do that. So that is another area that West Ham throughout the season or possibly pushing on to next season need to address and bring somebody in. And like I say, Lundstrom, it's a bit of a pie in the sky, random. Yes, always Lord Lundstrom, but it's the fact that he is that mould of player, though, isn't he? He's that mould of player you could throw in 30 minutes or switch it up a little bit, and that's where West Ham is going towards. What's that, mate?
He'd be a good asset for us, mate. He'd be a good asset.
Yeah, no, 100%. Charles, I'll come to you, mate. I mean, you've heard it all. What we say, mate?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, we know that if we actually won the title, that the owners would end up selling the trophy somehow, and then the Premier League would be like, "No."
Man City bought it off.
Premier League would be like, "No, that's property of the Premier League." They're like, "Oh shit," but yeah, you can absolutely see that happening. But more realistic target would be, I think, 8 or 9th, based on where we are right now. I still think there's a few teams around us that will probably pick up points. But I mean, Declan Rice, if you want to go to Chelsea, you'll be playing at a lower level than you are right now. That's all I'm going to say. So yeah, as long as we can keep above Chelsea, I'll be very happy. But yeah, no, just 8th or 9th, mid-table, just a nice solid season, some good results, and hopefully a decent run of the cup would be a decent target for the team for the rest of the season, hopefully.
This season is so tight in terms of points and everything. What's benefited us is that team having time to understand what Moyes wants to do. Moyes actually improving in game management, and we were a bit of a cohesive unit. And I think that will. I'm not saying we'll go and get Champions League. I don't think we will. I think we'll possibly 8th or 9th as well, to be honest. But that, we sat here at Newcastle, Charles, you'll know, and I was head in hands. I was like, we are going down. There is no way we can progress. And we've pulled it out of the bag. This season, the team that does well is the consistency. See Man City get the system right, points and points and points, and now they're progressing towards the top of the table. So I think if West Ham can keep consistency, not get injuries, and be a bit lucky, let's be honest, then there's no reason why we can't push for Europe. It'd be some season and a half if we manage to pull that off. I won't speak too soon. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you your score predictions for Doncaster on Saturday. So, Dennis, score predictions, my friend.
Yeah, tougher than we could think, but 2-0 West Ham.
God, who's scoring?
I don't know who's playing, so I'm just going to the ghost of Radislav Kovac and Craig Dawson.
Lovely. Charles?
I'm going to go for 3-0 West Ham, and we're going to have a Dawson brace and an Antonio tap-in.
Lovely stuff. And Ollie?
I think it's going to be 2-0 as well. I'm back in. I reckon Yarmolenko is going to get himself on the score sheet. Even though I don't rate him as a player, I think he'll end up playing and I think he might get a goal. And then I reckon one of the centre-backs is going to nod one in from a corner or something nearer the end. So yeah, 2-0 West Ham. More comfortable than Stockport, I reckon, because we're at home. So,
God, I hope so, mate. I ruined it because someone said in the comments earlier we're actually not going to Doncaster. So I'm sorry I got it wrong. But I'll go for 2-0. I reckon 2-0. I reckon we bring Bowen on late on. I reckon he gets a goal, and I reckon we'll probably end up playing Ogbonna. And he'll probably thump one home early doors, fingers crossed, and it'll be a relaxed watch along because we've had a few stressful ones, particularly the Burnley game. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. All 41 of you watching, make sure you like the video before you leave. Subscribe to the West Ham Way. Check out all these guys' socials as well. Loads of really good stuff going on there. And that'll be it. I'm coming back tomorrow with a transfer target video because, of course, it is silly season. So, again, we probably won't sign anyone, but we might as well just chew the fat and go through a load of options. We'll never sign and moan about it. And then, of course, predicted 11 for Doncaster will be out on Friday. And until next time, take care. Come on, you irons.